It's funny. It let you.
Oh, okay. It just started. It just started. Oh, snap. Oh,
That's that's fine. Um. Okay. Cool. Okay. That's all right. Technical difficulties. It's cool. Let me put it back on the stand. All right. So we are recording.
yes.
Cool. All right. Well, how are you?
I'm pretty good today.
Good. 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 So for those of you who don't know, I am in culinary school. And so I asked one of my classmates to come on the podcast today. So welcome, Woody, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me set my timer before I forget. Hold on 1 second. All right. So this show is all about talking about cooking, really, just trying to find out how people learn to cook so that hopefully someone who is watching the video and who doesn't know how to cook can get some tips from watching the video, as well as maybe even some confidence too. I think a lot of cooking boils down to like, of course, it's knowledge and experience, but I also think it's confidence as well.
Yes,
And so
you
just
definitely know how. Go ahead. I'll apologize. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and just maybe like hearing other people's stories about, how they learn how to cook might help, I think. So,
It's
and
definitely
what were you
helped
about to
me
say?
improve mine. Like
What?
listening to how other people got into it and
Yeah,
what they've done has definitely helped because it's like so many little tips that you can get from other people.
it is. It is. It is. So let's go ahead and get started. So tell me, what was your first experience with cooking? Like, when did you start cooking?
So my first experience with cooking, ironically enough, was not something I was ever taught.
Okay.
I was in elementary school, and I was only remember this because I went to Tampa with my daughter last weekend, and we
Hmm.
drove by the school. And I remembered it. I was like, so the first thing I ever made was a Boston cream cake. Uh, I had the cake, I had the box cake, and I made the cream filling inside of it from scratch. It looked like a kid made that cake. And all honestly, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Like looking back at it, a kid definitely made that cake. Unfortunately, I never got to taste it. I never got to taste it, and I think that's partly why I don't ever eat. I don't eat a lot of my foods because of that.
Hmm.
So, unfortunately, the first thing I ever made, I never got to try.
Okay. So what about, so you, do you prefer baking over like cooking or like,
See, at first, I originally I wanted to cook, but then I learned
mm-hmm,
that I'm really good at baking.
mm-hmm,
But in recent years, I'm like, oh, these two are seeming pretty like they seem pretty on par with each other.
mm-hmm.
It's just the more I'm practicing with them, the better I'm getting. And I can tell you this: I suck at grilling. I ain't no ifs, ands, or buts. I am horrible at it. I will burn something. Do not trust me with it. Do not trust me. I got some advice when I went to go buy this device for baking, but like all in all, cooking and baking, I'm pretty good at that.
Okay.
I love them. I
So
love them both.
do you remember though, like, okay, so did you cook growing up? Like not baking, but cook, like cook food.
Yes, the first thing I ever cooked, that first thing I ever cooked would have to have been fried chicken, and probably this is around the time Harry Potter first came out, the first Harry Potter, and I burned the kitchen, burnt
Wait a minute.
the
Wait a minute.
kitchen.
Wait. What?
Yes, the kitchen. I set the kitchen on fire. It was permanently covered in like just smoke everywhere. It was permanently covered in smoke. The first time I ever learned to cook something was fried chicken, and I burnt the kitchen.
I had another guest who burned the kitchen. I can't remember. She probably was cooking fried chicken too. I don't know. So, did you have any oversight? Like, were you? Did you just go, oh, let me see if I can do this? Like, had you seen anybody cook fried chicken?
My mom was teaching me. She was showing me how I think I was just dropping it in. Like I had like seasoned it and everything and cut it up and all that stuff. And then when I went to drop it in, it caught on fire. And like all the oil spilled out and caught on fire. That was a funny day. She didn't let me cook for a very, very long time. And I tell you this, that kitchen ain't never looked or smelled any differently after that. It just like this is what happened. This is my mistake.
Okay, so before the fire, do you remember what she told you? Like, how did she, like, things that she told you to do in terms of like preparing the chicken and getting it ready to be fried?
I don't remember she having too many like interesting techniques because realistic, I didn't learn about how people really kind of did it until I got a bit older, like until I became an adult and started seeing
Okay.
how different people do it. For the most part, look, we season it in the sink. We
Yeah.
we cut it up and season it in the sink.
Right.
And I shit you not, I'm literally like remembering this as I'm telling it to you. Like, because I guess I tried to forget some of that stuff. So I was like, I can't do that no more. That's not how you do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, seasoning, we cut it up. Like I remember like, so yeah, she showed me how to use. She was the first person to show me how to cut meat, and it was always just cutting chicken. Always that it was between cutting chicken and bell peppers and onions. Those three things.
Hmm.
That's how I learned how to. That's how I first learned how to do anything with cooking. And I would always cut it up in the sink, and then because we go to the butcher, I mean the butcher, and then we just like buy like a bunch of it, and then I prep it at home for us, and that's
Right.
how I started with that. Just prepping is how I started.
Right. So how do you know when grease is hot enough for a chicken?
Ooh, now I use a thermometer. It's like now I use a thermometer. I ain't tell you. Now I
Right,
use a thermometer.
right. No, listen,
Back
there is no shame. I am with you. Like I'm like I use a thermometer. I'm not. I mean,
hey
well,
man,
you
I
know
ain't
what?
trying this.
The sometimes well I have used a wooden spoon,
Yep,
but
I'm trying that, but
yeah,
it's still like look, it says a specific temperature. So like, because I kind of go by recipes with it. Like it says a specific temperature, unless it just says like to heat it to like medium high heat. I'm like, okay, I can figure it out. I can
yeah,
generally figure out. Like for the most part, with my stove now, I can figure out when it needs to be done. But since I'm using like it. It also kind of depends with. It depends on how much oil you're using, and what kind of what pot and pan that you're using to cook it with.
right.
Now I'm realizing that now, but back then she just said just drop a bit of flour in it. If it fizzles,
Right.
you're
And it
good to
starts
go.
to, yeah.
If it fizzles, you're good.
Yeah.
I'm like, and to
Yeah.
this day, I still do this. Just I think it's just instinctive. I
Yeah.
just do it just to test it. I'm like, just to be sure, I'm gonna stick the thermometer in it.
Right, right. Yeah, listen, I'm right there with you. Okay, so after the fried chicken fire incident, is there anything else that you remember cooking at home?
After that, I worked my way up into cooking again, and
Okay.
I think that was really just like the first thing. But then after that, I pretty much that's when it just took off, and I was like I would make breakfast for everybody every morning. We had a house full of kids and people. The first thing I ever really got down right was making pancakes, and then I would eventually go back into making chicken and a bunch of other
Mm-hmm.
things. But it
Mm-hmm.
started with I would make pancakes every morning for everyone.
So was it like homemade pancakes where you're mixing flour and okay.
Now, my mom did not have much of those lines of like cooking like from scratch. She was a busy woman. She didn't have that kind of time. Like
Right.
I applaud her. So I learned that way. But then as I got older, I don't look into this. I don't know how to make pancakes from scratch. I've tried it. Maybe I got to practice it a bit more. Maybe I got
So
to
that's
practice more.
interesting because I can make pancakes from scratch, and that's the only way I make them, but I cannot make cornbread for nothing in the world. For nothing in the world. I have tried, I cannot tell you how many batches of cornbread I have thrown away because I'm like, this is disgusting.
This is you don't like the taste
Disgusting.
of it?
I can't even
Cornbread. It's
explain
such
it.
a finicky. It's
It
if you don't put
is.
enough moisture in it, it will crumble. It will
It's
crumble if you don't put enough moisture in it.
so finicky. And I love cornbread and I cannot make it for nothing. As a matter of fact, I went and bought some hold on, let me show you. Hold on.
If you pull it out the jiffy, I ain't got no shame. I ain't got no shame.
No. Let me show you. I went and bought some this today. Can you see it?
Yes,
I've
yeah.
never tried it before.
The only one I've ever had was this jiffy my entire life until I think I became an adult, and then I finally had somebody made actual cornbread, and it had corn, and then I was like, this is it. This is what cornbread is to me. This sweetness. It had like honey butter and corn, and I was like, this is why I want my cornbread to taste all the time.
So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll let you know what happens with that cornbread. So, okay, so let's talk about seasoning food. So you helped me out a lot in class. Thank you so much. I will forever be grateful because and when it comes to seasoning, specifically salt, not so much pepper, but really the salt, like it's intimidating for me. I'm just like, I don't want to put, I don't want to put too much salt in this food. I don't want to mess up. So if you were, if somebody called you and they were, I don't know, let's just say making chicken, because I always use that as an example. And they were like, hey, I'm baking this chicken or whatever the case may be, or frying it, or whatever. And I I don't know what seasonings to put in it. I don't even know how much salt to put in. Like, how would you talk them through that? Or like what advice would you give them for it?
So as far as I only got better at seasoning recently, the same semester that we started going to class because my roommate she's Haitian and she has like this bigger I forgot she has a bigger appreciation for salt than I do. I prefer sweet things. So
Mhm.
she was like she'll just like whenever she's making something she'll just taste it and boom. So generally for me, look, I'm not too great at it myself, but like you can always under season, but like once you put like salt's always on the table. Salt is always at somebody's table. Like you can't fix what you over season. I mean, like what you over season, you cannot fix it.
Yeah.
Or some and also about a tablespoon of salt is generally pretty good. About a tablespoon of salt is generally pretty good for like making like fried chicken or whatever it is you're making with chicken because a little bit of salt goes a long way. It can
Hmm.
go a long way. But the only thing is like you can't once you put too much in, you can't take it back.
Right. And you can't taste raw chicken.
Yeah.
So
So
so there's different there's different kinds of salt, right? So you
mhm.
have your kosher salt, which is bigger, you have your table salt, you have your fine sea salt. And so like you can't put, well, I ain't gonna say you can't, but I don't know if I would put a tablespoon of table salt on like a pack of, let's say, I don't let's say I had 8 drumsticks or something. Like, would you put a tablespoon of table salt?
I usually well as far as salt goes, I usually prefer for me I prefer sea salt, but
Okay. So
how
so let's talk about sea salt. So you have like fine sea salt and then you have the coarse sea salt. Like which one do you typically use?
now see that one now more so it depends.
Okay, so
It,
let's
it
let's
really
keep it at chicken.
depends. All right,
Okay, so
so
let's
for the
keep it at
chicken,
chicken.
I will use finer chicken because it's a
Okay.
lot smaller and it will dissolve a lot quicker. The
Right.
course is too big for that, and
Right. And it just
that's
falls
like
off.
that's yeah that works for like decorate. Not so much. That just works for stirring in something. The
Right.
fine works perfectly well because it'll quickly dissolve into the marinade, and you can usually use less. So you can use a bit less of it too in some regards.
Right. Yeah. So if I'm calling you, I'm like, hey, I have some fine sea, so I don't know I don't know how to put I don't know how much to put on this chicken. You would say, oh, well, just try a tablespoon and kind of go from there and see what happens. I mean, maybe.
It's really hard because everyone just appreciates salt so much differently. So it's
Right.
really hard. It's really hard. At the very least, half it, half it, and
I
then
have a
half it.
tablespoon.
But
Okay.
when you finish it, depending on how you're cooking it,
Right.
put salt on it afterwards. Put salt on
Right.
just put salt on one of them. Try it out, and if you like it, if you like it, we'll just make one of them. If you like how that one tastes, add a bit more to the rest of them, or you can cook them as they are and then add the salt afterwards. Like sometimes you just need to try it, like make a little batch, try it out
Yeah.
that way, and then adjust from there. Because that's usually what I have to do, especially when I was learning how to make pork katsu and I kept over frying it. I had to like keep
Mhm.
making it in smaller batches to figure out the temperature and the
Okay.
taste. So generally, like if you just make a batch, but this is if you have the time for this.
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
general sense, like half it and add it afterwards. Like just half it and add it afterwards. Add it to it afterwards to see if it works
Yeah.
that way.
So when you are salting your chicken, are there any like visual cues that you like what are you thinking when you're putting the salt on? Like do you do you know or are you just like I mean because I'm pretty sure you probably are not
There's a whisper that
thinking
says, "I think you." There's a whisper that says you can stop now.
it must be your
it's just,
ancestors. People always
it's
talk
like,
about
it's
their
just
ancestors
something.
talking to you. My
It's
ancestors,
just something you know. It's just like, hey, hey. I think this is enough. It's like
my
sometimes
ancestors
this might be enough.
My ancestors do not talk to me. I wish they would. That's okay though. Okay, so besides, okay, so we're sticking with the chicken. Okay, so we got our sauce. What else do
Mhm.
you? What now? We're just talking about just regular baked chicken, like nothing fancy. So, like, what else would you add to it?
So a lot of my baked chicken I make now is paprika chicken. It's just a nice little blend of paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and pepper.
Okay,
Maybe a bit of white pepper in it, and some spices, some peppers, like maybe red crushed red peppers. I
crushed
can't think
red
of it.
pepper.
So
Mm-hmm.
maybe a bit of that, or something like habanero to give it a better spice. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just my general for making my big chicken.
Okay. 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 So are there any like cooking tips or suggestions you would give to someone who is just starting out, just really doesn't know how to cook? Like any helpful tidbits?
So I get a lot of my recipes off of Pinterest. I freaking love that place. Oh my god, oh man, I don't know what it'd be without it. Because I've always had this idea of wanting like an actual cookbook, just
Yeah.
like something to pass down or something to receive, and just like this is the closest I could probably get.
Yeah.
So I read like whenever I look for a recipe or whenever I want to, because if I've never made something, whenever I look at the recipe, especially on Pinterest or YouTube, I read the comments because there are people who are way better at this, who have made this many times, who will give really good advice that person who made it, for them, it may be something that they overlook because it's just not for them because it's just
Right.
you know what you like. You know what
Right.
how you like how you like your food, even if it's something you've never made. You have the inklings of it. You know how you kind of want your food to taste in general sense. So,
Okay.
especially if you know what the ingredients are, like just read through the comments because you will be surprised. I've made dishes so because I've made a mistake with just I followed the recipe to the letter and then like I read the
Mhm.
comments like yeah if you do this it won't you won't have this issue and I'm like wow I should have just read the if I
Right.
read that
Yeah.
comment I would have known I could have just cut this
Yeah.
out a little bit. I'm like the comments help. They go a lot. They go a long way than what the
That's what
video
you need
will.
too.
Or it's like it's people really don't read the comments because it's just so amazing now what people will leave in the comment section for some of these videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And
You
it's
know,
interesting. Go ahead.
so one thing that I was thinking about the other day is I don't know if you well, yeah, because you would have been there. So I think it was the first, maybe the second day of one of the classes. I don't know if it was food one or food two, where Chef had us tasting all of those every single
Oh,
seasoning and
God.
spice. And by the time we got to the salt, I was like, I can't. But one of the
They
things
all taste the same.
I know, like they like this is crazy. But like
They
one of the
taste
things I
slightly. They just taste slightly different.
wait a minute. One of the things I thought about the other day for people who don't know how to cook and just very unfamiliar with spices is to just taste a little bit to see what it tastes like on its own.
Yes.
Like I think that's such a good tip though.
Yes.
Taste it because I've never done that at home before. But I mean, and God, felt like we were tasting for days, hours. We were tasting for hours.
It was a lot. It was a lot. Oh my
It was
god, it was a lot. It was
it was
like
a
it was
lot.
just a lot. It was a
It
lot
was
for
a
one
lot.
class. Like I know we do a lot in that class, but for some weird reason, that was a lot.
It was a lot. And it was a lot. And it was like it took a while for us to get
Yes, it took like half. It
through
took like
all of
half,
it.
if not the whole class, to do.
If not the whole exactly. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. So thank you so much. I definitely appreciate you coming on and talking to me. I'll probably have you back. And, I asked you the other day, like one of these days we're going to cook together. So I'm excited for that too.
Almost definitely. I do have something. I've come to. Man, this is funny enough. Like I never really had a favorite dish for anything. I make what it comes to mind. But when I was learning how to make pork dumplings, I think it was like this because I was making them for my daughter because she wanted some. I was like, okay, I can't afford to go buy you some, but I'll go make you some. I'll make you
Yeah.
some. That's pretty easy. So I was getting around. It was like the sixth one. That's when I finally got it. And I was making the sixth one. I finally figured out how to get them right. I was like, this is it. Like making these is the most peaceful thing I've ever done when it comes to cooking.
Really?
It's just like the folding of them little folds. Those little
Mhm.
folds. It's
I've
just
never
so
had pork dumpling before.
it's so fun. I have to make some this weekend. Actually, I do have to make some this weekend. I do
Nice.
have to make some this weekend. I will definitely let you know because I'm
Yeah.
going to make these ones from scratch and everything. I'm gonna grind the pork up and everything.
Oh wow. See you fancy. You fancy.
I got a lot of free time when it comes to cooking. I got a lot of free time sometimes.
So is that your okay, so is that but that's not your like is that's kind of time consuming, is it?
I'll, I've only recently realized this week nothing in my house that I have. If I want to eat something, I have to cook it. I don't have any almost nothing in here is ready to be eaten. I have to cook it. And I realized I was like, oh my God, this sucks. When I'm just hungry, I don't want to come home and just cook something. Sometimes I just want something to already be prepared. So
Yeah.
it's definitely time consuming. I'm not gonna sit here a lot. It definitely takes some time. So yeah, like a lot of my stuff, yeah, I really like, and that's what I loved about that class is like I just make all this stuff and I make it all in advance and just like because I'm gonna be hungry for it sooner or later and I want something to eat at some point. But unfortunately, I don't really have anything in my house that's just ready to eat all the time unless I had already prepared it.
Right, right. I got you. I got you. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we are getting ready to start, our next semester soon. So looking forward to that.
Very much so, very much so. I can't wait because this has been a very long break from
Yeah,
class.
it has been. It has been. All right. Well, thank you again, and I will talk to you and see you soon.
Very much so. Alrighty,
Bye.
bye bye.